I'm going to look at the property tomorrow. And even though I called a phone number on the side of a building, and I just went on a whim, and I got in contact with the guy and I set up the showing and everything, I still immediately called Steve right after and said, I'm going to look at this building, you're coming with me. Because I know I would never want to buy a property without my agent representing me. Because I don't know that part of the industry. So I would never even attempt it. And also, he has done a heck of a lot more as far as rehabbing and renovations, which I know this building's gonna need. So I want him there with me because I know he's gonna look at it and be honest, and he's gonna be able to tell me right up front 90% of what this building needs, and then you can just ballpark the other 10%.
Well, yeah, you're gonna build in a 20% protection just in case.
Absolutely, yeah.
But for in our experience with the rehabs, because we do a lot for customers like we did with you with the 203K, which is just a rehab loan. Geez, the biggest problem is the scheduling, and so nobody's there to put it all together. I mean, that's essentially what I do. I just network and know a bunch of people so that when one plumber calls out, we're gonna call 10 and get somebody there within a reasonable amount of time, and then your job isn't sitting around being waiting to be done forever. And you just gotta have options, and you gotta have people that are out there. The thing is, we're trying to make it so you can leverage off of us. We do hundreds of deals a year, and we refer hundreds of deals a year to contractors. So we're able to get the best prices, the best treatment, and you're not just some guy asking for one job in a lifetime to these contractors. You're one of our clients we're referring to them, which gives you a lot more backing than you might think. We're an agent team, and then we have just built unbelievable connections over the years with every realtor in the industry and every vendor there is. So it's really just about making sure that you not only are you going to get an accurate, the honesty is, I think, what you were kind of saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not worried about, if anything, I'm going to try to talk you out of it.
Oh, to make sure. Many times we walked into buildings and I'm like, oh, this place has character. And he's like, this place is a money pit.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah.
It's in our benefit because, like, if we have, if it's not going to work, it's better to know than not know. I feel like there's so many people that'll sell you something without really looking into it and also thinking about whether it's the best thing for your actual. So not only will we customize it for you, but we're also going to be looking at everything that can be scrutinized, because if you just, that's why you can't just go to a listing or to a seller. They're just going to tell you the good things about it. They're not going to tell you, and they're not obligated to tell you. Or they also should be reading you your Miranda rights, because everything you say and do will be used against you, but you never hear that either. So what we're able to do is go in and, these agents, we have a very strict protocol for how we operate, so they have no idea what we're thinking, what we're doing. And I just have so many buyers that go out of their way to tell the agent stuff they shouldn't be, and I'm just like, don't. So, especially on the investor side, but for residential too, it's such an emotional process that people just forget that they're in the arena, and it really is all about, we're passionate about it, and I think that's why you find yourself here helping too, because the passion is really what it's all about. Anybody can do something for money, but it's not just that. It's genuinely interesting. It's genuinely different every time, so it stays relevant and interesting.
Absolutely. Whenever I look at a property and then I do a calculation, I have my income property calculation that I use, and then even if the calculation doesn't come out just right, first of all, it's that process of just using my imagination to try and find a solution.
Yeah.
To make this deal work, and a lot of the time, there's no way it's happening. But other times, you can say, oh, if I change this here, or if I turn this into this, if I add this, or if I eliminate this, or then all of a sudden you start getting closer to a good deal. And then you can start developing a strategy, and you can think about things down the road and stuff like that. And then it really is, it's very exciting for me. I get very, I have a lot of fun with it whenever I'm looking at a deal and figuring out. And a lot of the time, I don't even do anything. Like, the math is just there already.
Yeah.
They're set their asking price. Maybe they already did the calculation and they know what they need to ask. And then you can just go and do your own calculation and say, that works.
Yeah.
Make an offer for full price. It's good. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal.
Well, that's the thing with income property, it's not, it's not the same sort of trying to get a good deal feeling like you get when you go, I think a lot of people do that with residential, but even when you just go shop in the store, it's kind of like a thrill to get something, but really when you're buying something at this price level, you'd be much better served to buy something of value rather than thinking you're getting a value by paying cheap.
Right.
I feel like the value should be in there, and often what I deal with the way that I have to interpret people is that they'll go, hey, this property's overpriced, and what they mean is that it's too much for that.
Right.
Opposed to, it's too much that I want to spend, I don't want to spend any more money than that. What they really mean is they probably want to go up a line rather than go down a line because they're not satisfied with the value they're getting. Which I think is why you don't want to really deal with just any agent or group, because they may be totally clueless for how income property can work in evaluations and representing it, overcoming objections. They might even be just totally defenseless, which is terrifying if you're the seller. And well, people do. I was going to say I had one yesterday, and the agent didn't know anything about the property, doesn't know anything about getting variances, and was making a bunch of claims about this stuff that basically couldn't be backed up in any way, shape, or form. And what was interesting was that, we had gone through the place, and like you said, sometimes you can be creative. I've had guys where there was a lot of competition in an area, and one guy decided to allow pets. Boom. Unique marketing point, where everybody else, no pets, no way, no how, don't even come in here. He goes, and then he had a line of people, his whole building became vacant, filled up in no time. So it's just being creative like that, but this one is kind of like in yours, you had the barn, which wasn't being used. You're able to outsource it for more income, and you were lucky.
Exactly.
So it's not just things that are, there's a lot of ways to turn these buildings into income that maybe people who never had needed. Maybe if you weren't a contractor, you wouldn't know contractors have to store all this junk somewhere, and it's got to be a convenient location. So having it in town is fantastic, opposed to way out on the edge of town in the storage unit. So
yeah. So I guess really what the point is don't put snow on frostbite.
Yeah, and anybody can learn from any idiot can learn from the tough lessons of life, but it's really about bringing wisdom and not having to learn those hard lessons. Again, learn them from someone who's already made those mistakes. That's certainly how I learned. I watched people screw up when I was a contractor in ways that it's laughable now, but nobody was laughing at the time. It was horrible, but it was like, it's funny because you see somebody screw up like that, you're like, I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to know what it feels like. And you can prevent a lot of trouble in this industry just by being able to identify stuff up front and being honest with yourself, being honest with your strengths, and not trying to say you're good at something that you don't really know anything about. And having a really strong backup team that is not afraid to be honest with you and tell you, hey, you're crazy, or hey, maybe you're right, maybe we can check it out. Yeah. And so, what we try to do when we bring someone in is just go, hey, I want to show you this deal. Tell me what you think. And that's how we kind of get to know you and know what's going to work for you. And we want to provide all this stuff so that maybe you open up to different things, but you also can kind of see where maybe your focus is. Because I think for most people, they're going to be right in that 3 to 4 unit building, but that might be too much for some people, and that might not be enough for a lot of people. Right. So it just depends on where you're comfortable and what your purpose is. Especially if you're a business, you may be looking to use this as a way to tax defer a lot of stuff. And we didn't even get into any of the 1031 stuff where you can tax exchange these to your kid. So essentially defer your taxes for life and then pass it to your kid. And there are other options as well. So I think when it comes to life, to truly live free, you have to understand all your options. You have to understand how the games play.
I think I had an idea for when we were talking about the team building.
Yep.
Like you got to build a team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What if we said, we've already built the team, are you ready to join it?
Yeah, and that's the art. I almost think of it that way, like be the key player on our team, because when you come in and win with us, when you come in and enjoy our program, you're helping a bunch of other people stay passionate about it and stay able to do it. Because I know if we weren't able to bring in a bunch of business, that all this, we wouldn't be able to put in all this effort to create all this because it wouldn't generate anything. So I think what's amazing about it is that we really believe this is a truly like a circle of abundance that we can build and really make the pie bigger. There's really no reason not to. And if you look at new construction stats over since the Great Recession, if you think it's over, is that the entire housing recovery is multifamilies. And so why is everybody building multifamilies? Because it works. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, so it's probably like 10% commercial, 30% residential, 60% multifamily right there. So I feel like there's got to be a reason that if banks are going to willing to lend on new construction, and I've almost never seen a bank not lend on a multifamily, unless there's something really wrong with it or whatever. Multifamilies are just, when you look at it historically, there's nothing else globally that actually produces wealth in such a, I mean, the entire model of serfdom and stuff like this was all built around how awesome real estate is. And try and buy something, you know, over in Europe, there's not much left. You know, you're usually buying some sort of condo like deal, and it's scary. You know, that's what I find. Also interesting, like when I lived out west for a while, and I got really fearful of housing, with homeowners associations, because it's just one more thing you don't control. And that's why I don't like group buys on income property, even though that can work out and it can be fine. It's that the more people you have involved with it that are, you're not directly in control of it, just the more opinions you're dealing with and the more pull, and it just gets more difficult. So
Absolutely. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Don't keep adding layers. You keep, you know, there's a tendency to always want to add layers.
Of course. It seems like the natural thought.
It feels like, you know, if you keep adding layers, then you're, you know, outsourcing all the stress. But you're really not. All you're doing is allowing opportunity for more stress to find you. You keep it simple. Remove the layers. Take care of it yourself. Until, you know, maybe you can get to the point where then you can hire property management or something like that. But even in that role, that's somebody who's representing your needs, as opposed to somebody else's needs finding their way into your property.
And I don't think it's a terrible idea to actually understand what that person is doing, as in having done it yourself. The only reason I was able to GC my house was because I've worked under GCs and done all that. And so it wasn't really until I saw what that entailed that I could take on that obligation, or I could pass it off to someone and still be able to manage it remotely, because I know what to expect. I'm familiar with what the heck's going on. I'm familiar with the stresses, and I almost predict some of it.
GC means general contractor,
Yeah,
for
thank you.
anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, and in New Hampshire, you know, live free.
Live free.
Yeah, they don't mind. And that's the other thing, is that you're going to have arbitrages of legal. The difference between renting in Maine and New Hampshire is like night and day, or loaning on property in Maine and New Hampshire is a night and day, or trying to operate anything in Massachusetts. You know, it's just, you're going to find completely different opportunities, and that's what we're really trying to do for everybody, is to be area agnostic. You know, we have our central location out of Portsmouth, but if Portsmouth doesn't make sense, and in a lot of cases, it doesn't. I mean, you can definitely have consistent rent there, and it's a heck of a nice place to live. But for the cost, I mean, you can basically go live lakeside in Chicago or in LA for similar money.
Right. It's investing in Portsmouth would be a lot more speculative than it would be.
It'd be entirely speculative.
Yeah, then, because you're really, and I've done a ton of income property calculations on properties for sale in Portsmouth, and that was, you know, just within the last couple of years. So I'm fairly certain that I can say that the only reason you would purchase income property in Portsmouth is for appreciation purposes.
Which seems to be all right ever since the 80s.
Or maybe some tax purposes that I don't fully understand.
Yeah, there are reasons,
Yeah.
and we haven't gotten into any of this. There are, mostly what we're trying to do is the people that are coming up into this or considering it, because a lot of people that are already in it don't really need, they already get it. I mean, it is, once you kind of get into it, it is relatively simple once you get into it. It's just getting the mindset
Very
shift.
intimidating.
It's intimidating.
Without knowing I mean, it's not intimidating.
It's almost
for me
like
now
your
anymore.
fear is the word, because you tend to blow, like at least me, I'll blow stuff way out of proportion. It never even happens.
Yeah.
All the time. And I think that's where, like with the escrow thing we were talking about earlier, is that, that's not even relevant, really. I mean, unless you really have someone who is looking out for your interests, you're totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost would never happen. And even if it did, it's still not even real. So it's,
Absolutely.
You know?
So a lot of the, for me anyway, once I took the time to educate myself and I started getting a little bit of experience in it and was doing the income property calculations and they really started making sense to me, that intimidation turned to excitement and it turned into fun. Like, for example, this property that we're going to look at tomorrow together, it's a long shot. You know, it would be insane to call it anything but a long shot. But I've driven by this building 1,000 times. It's right by
Something's calm.
where I live. And I've seen it for sale for so long, and I said, I gotta look at this building. And I called the town, I found out a little bit of information about it, and talked to a couple people, got a couple different people's opinions on the building itself. And, to actually go into this, like, I don't know, what would you say, like I was really confident that I was going to turn this into something. It's definitely not where I'm at. But I'm really excited about the amount of fun I'm going to have trying to find out if I can make it something that works. And it's just like, there's just a whole world of opportunity.
Or if you know someone that it might work for, even if it doesn't work for you.
Absolutely, yes.
That's what we basically try to do, is we try to know everybody and know what they're looking for, and then as things come up, we're trying to sort and filter, because, it may not be the same type of investment I'm interested in, and it may not be the same that you're interested in, but there's gonna be somebody that it fits, and that's what's amazing about income property, and I think you were wise to kind of take the break after when we had that first bit, because it seemed like you had got some experience, and then you wanted to go back and kind of test that against the theory, because you had got out into the real world thing. I actually commend you, because you went out and did, you went out and pulled the trigger. You went out and did it. And there's a lot you can only learn from that. And then coming back and taking that into the theory, it makes you understand the theory on a different level. And it also, I know in a lot of difficult situations, the theory can be from one side to the other. It can be best case scenario to worst case scenario, and sometimes that's tough, and so can real life. But most of the time you find out that real life is pretty standard, with the exception of fun things like, that come up. But,
and it's kind of funny too. Another thing that, I've thought about that is just really funny to point out is that when you're around a lot of people who have never owned income property and, you talk to them about maybe being interested in it, what do you hear? Horror stories.
Or that they.
Horror story.
I couldn't imagine myself cashing a check for doing nothing. It's what
negativity.
Yeah.
These are people who have never owned income property. These are people who have just, they just cashed it right to the side. They say, no way, that's way too much headache.
What I always hear is
not worth it.
All debt's bad. And I feel like if you said something
Yes,
like that,
yeah,
no,
absolutely.
what it is that they oversimplify things to the point where it's a shortcut to thinking. And so instead of thinking, you think Nike, you think some sort of brand. And so it's the same idea when it comes to these concepts where like, okay, is all debt bad? Well, most of these people that would be telling us, hey, income property, no, it's scary, all this, they're the first ones in line to buy, to get a credit card, a consumer credit card, which is bad debt, or to spend a bunch of money on a car, which is bad debt, unless you happen to be a mechanic and a collector and you have a place to store it, which also involves quite a substantial, I consider this type of debt the most optimal, and it is nothing like any other debt, because your tenants are paying for it, first off, you're not even paying for it. You're only putting down, you put down what, of your property, not even 3%?
Yeah, well, 3.5%.
Yeah.
So I put 3.5% down, yeah.
Yeah, so you get 97% leverage.
Yeah.
Okay, try and do that with gold. Anybody gonna leverage my gold?
Yeah.
No, they're not.
I mean, the only other way that you could really leverage your money like that I know of would be like buying stock on margin. And that
Yes.
would just be
A lot
insane.
of people do.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's when you get the guy with the baseball bat.
Right.
Covered.
Yeah. I just feel like that it's such a, there's the stuff that passes for financial education. You know, why are people telling you about your credit score? Because they want you to use credit, you know. So it's all these things. They're teaching you something like an ad so that they can. There's something other alternative. For us, it's like we want you to live free. Like it's all built in there. Like you can't live free if you don't understand this stuff. It's impossible.
And my point is that if you just pay attention to the negativity that people who have no business talking about real estate investing say, and you just believe every horror story you've ever heard, I challenge you to go to a local real estate investors meeting. Go to one. They have them every month. I did, yeah. I've been to them with him, and you just go somewhere, a room that's full of experienced landlords that are just super excited to be landlords. They absolutely love it. There's nothing else they'd rather be doing, and these are guys that have done it, as opposed to people who have never spent a second being a landlord talking about how terrible it is.
What I think it is that most of the people that have negative things to say, they have negative things to say about their past landlords.
Right.
Which is maybe true or maybe not be. I mean, I've always seen it like this. The landlords that actually are proactive and take care of things have much more freedom and enjoyable life quality, and the building tends to do better. Guys who have, it's almost like people with like drug habits or something, where they take all the money from the property and then they wonder why they're so screwed later when everything's falling apart and they're trying to sell it and they're trying to pass on the buck, and you know, it just never seems to work out for that sort of mentality. It just seems like if you're not responsible to a certain extent, or you're not, when we think about income property, it's not about slumlording and some sort of check coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It's about providing a service for someone who doesn't necessarily want the obligation of buying a house. You're providing a service, it's beneficial both, it's a win-win-win, and it's also allowing, you know, you to benefit from owning this property, which, you know, if we didn't have, I mean, it's never been easier to rent. If anything, after everything had happened with the housing debacle, which is funny, because I have a guy who is Wall Street, you know, like, wears the whole, you know, and dresses up. But he couldn't even understand, this guy's a stock guy, and he was talking to me about, you know, apples and oranges and everything. And I was just like, you know, it just blows my mind how out of touch Wall Street is with reality, in the sense of like, they can look at Facebook and they can use all that publicity that they drown us. Everybody knows that, you know, everything when those things happen. But real estate's really this quiet, it's not really sexy and it's not this glamorous thing, but it's the only thing that actually works. So Wall Street has the best salesman on the planet, and real estate's got a bunch of single moms and, you know, the occasional contractor convert like myself. And, you know, these guys that get tired of, and generally, I enjoy just helping people. It's the stories, it's kind of like what we did with you. That was an amazing part of the process, because we went from one side to the other, and, you know, it doesn't work for everybody, and everybody's story is different, and that's what keeps it fun for me, too, because, you know, when I do a deal, it's pretty straightforward. It's just paperwork, or whatever. You know, it's not. There's not as much excitement. It's more exciting for me to actually help someone, because that's a little bit. I get way more of a kick out of it. You know, in a way, it is selfish because I really enjoy doing it. You know, I genuinely like being busy and doing those sort of things. But it's amazing to me that most people take what they see on TV and what they think is the conventional wisdom, when it's really just something that was sold to you. And that's really, I guess, what we're trying to say is be actually part of the selling. Don't be sold to. You're either selling or you're being sold to. So when you're buying something like this, you're actually positioning yourself to sell in a better way. One reason is because, like, you know, say with a property, and then maybe you have to move to Florida. So you buy a property in New Hampshire and you're going to move to Florida now. You may have to carry a rent and that property until it sells. That's really a scary prospect for a lot of people, and I've had that happen so many times.
Yeah.
But I've never had that happen on an income property, because the tenants are paying for it.
Right.
So it's a total different mentality. In fact, I have military guys that were stationed here at Pease for a few years. Instead of buying the house, they bought an income property, and now they're out in San Diego, and they just have someone running it.
Yeah.
Again, the VA programs are fantastic for that. And I have a lot of ex-cops, fire guys that were ex-veterans that get the most unbelievable loans for this type of stuff. I mean, you just can't find a country that you could put down, like for the VA loan, it was like 1% down on an income property. It was nonsense.
Yeah.
So and I think he actually got cash back at closing. They actually paid him to buy the place, and then he just started cashing checks at that point. So he actually never put any money in the property, which is crazy.
Yeah, which is the ideal.
That's ideal, but that's
Absolutely
but even at an owner-occupied rate is fantastic, even at 20%, and even at listing price. Because if the math works, it really doesn't matter what you pay for it, as long as the math is going to work for you. I think people get a lot hung up on that, and believe me, we've pushed deals down because it doesn't work. I mean, it's clear, it's very clear, but when we evaluate these things, we're using the same things that appraisers, we know how everything is done for the entire industry, how the banker's math is gonna roll, how the appraiser, we own an appraisal company, so we definitely know that, and what other realtors are gonna do and think, and that's like the lowest standards, and then, real investor numbers, which is, the numbers don't lie, and then tie in the rehab numbers. I mean, how handy is it to actually be able to get rehab numbers? I was just dealing with someone who didn't, it's become such a staple in our business that they didn't even realize it was a big deal that I could have someone in there for the home inspection to bid everything out and have it all done in the same week. I mean, that's nonsense. That almost never happens. And, they were just like, oh, of course it's like that. On HGTV, it's like that. It's like, no, I mean, you have to know a good 100 contractors to be able to line something up like that. And we do, and we refer them a lot of business.